You think you know everything about Raven Baxter's psychic adventures, but this beloved Disney Channel sitcom harbored some truly bizarre secrets. From Raven-Symoné's genuine snake phobia causing real terror on set to the show accidentally inspiring High School Musical, these hidden facts reveal just how strange things got behind the scenes of your favorite teenage clairvoyance world. Fact 1. Raven was originally cast as the sidekick. Here's something that might blow your mind. Raven-Symoné wasn't supposed to be the star of her own show. When she first walked into auditions for what would eventually become That's So Raven, the series had a completely different name and a totally different lead character in mind. Back in the early 2000s, Disney Channel was developing a show called Absolutely Psychic about a teenage girl with psychic powers. The creators, Michael Porias and Susan Sherman, were looking for someone to play the main character, whose name was originally Molly. Plus, they needed an actress for the goofy, ditzy best friend role. When Raven-Symoné showed up to audition, she read for both parts. But here's the kicker. She actually wanted to play the sidekick character, not the lead. According to the show's creator Michael Porias, Raven-Symoné was so talented during her audition that they had her read for both the main psychic character and the comedic best friend role. When they asked her which part she preferred, she chose the best friend position. This decision might seem surprising now, considering how perfectly she fit the lead role, but at the time. Meanwhile, Annelies van der Pol, who would eventually become Chelsea, originally auditioned for the lead role of the psychic teenager. The casting process was so fluid that both actresses essentially swapped their intended roles. Once the producers realized how incredible Raven-Symoné was, they made the smart decision to restructure the entire show around her talents and personality. This casting shuffle completely transformed the series. The show was renamed That's So Raven. The main character became Raven Baxter instead of Molly, and van der Pol was brought back to audition for what became the Chelsea role. Without this last-minute casting change, we might have gotten a completely different show with a different star, and Raven-Symoné might have remained a supporting character in someone else's story. Fact 2. The snake terror was 100% real. Sometimes, the most genuine moments on television happen when actors aren't actually acting at all, and that's exactly what occurred during one of That's So Raven's most memorable episodes. In the Season 1 episode called Party Animal, Raven's character has to deal with a live boa constrictor. But what viewers witnessed wasn't just great acting, it was Raven-Symoné's real, unfiltered terror playing out on screen. The episode's plot centers around Raven trying to throw the perfect birthday party for her little brother Corey after having a vision that he says he hates her. When their parents get sick and can't take Corey and his friends to the zoo as planned, Raven decides to bring the zoo to them instead. This leads to her dressing up as a crocodile hunter character and interacting with various reptiles, including a large boa constrictor that gets draped around her shoulders. Here's where things get real. Raven-Symoné has a genuine, deep-seated fear of snakes in real life. During filming, when the animal handler placed the boa constrictor on her shoulders, her horrified facial expressions weren't the result of skilled acting. They were completely authentic reactions to her worst nightmare coming true. In interviews after the episode aired, Raven-Symoné admitted that she was genuinely terrified during the entire scene. The actress later revealed that she actually burst into tears the moment the snake was first put on her body, and the crew had to stop filming to comfort her. She described the experience by saying, "The sick faces I'm making are for real," confirming that every grimace, every look of panic, and every moment of visible discomfort was her genuine reaction to being in close contact with one of her biggest fears. Despite her terror, Raven-Symoné pushed through and completed the scene, showing incredible professionalism and dedication to her craft. The episode became one of the series' most popular, partly because her authentic fear made the comedy feel so much more real and relatable to viewers who might share similar phobias. Fact 3. Takaya left for heartbreaking reasons. One of the most noticeable changes in That's So Raven happened during Season 3 when Tanya Baxter, Raven's mother, suddenly disappeared from the show with only a brief explanation that she had gone to England to study law. For years, fans wondered why Takaya Crystal Kima, the actress who played this beloved family matriarch, left such a successful series at the height of its popularity. But the real reason behind her departure is far more touching than anyone could have imagined. The truth is that Takaya Crystal Kima was facing a personal family crisis that required her full attention and care. During the show's first season, her grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, a devastating condition that progressively affects memory and cognitive function. As the primary caregiver for her grandmother, Takaya found herself juggling the demanding schedule of a hit television series while also providing the round-the-clock care that her grandmother needed. What makes this story even more remarkable is how the cast and crew of That's So Raven rallied around Takaya during this difficult time. She would often bring her grandmother to the set between takes, and her fellow cast members stepped up to help in ways that went far beyond their professional obligations. Kyle Massey and Orlando Brown's mothers would watch Takaya's grandmother in her dressing room while she was filming scenes, creating an informal support network that allowed her to continue working for as long as possible. However, as her grandmother's condition worsened, Takaya realized that she couldn't continue to balance both responsibilities effectively. She had originally expected to work on the show for only 3 seasons. And when that time came, she made the difficult but necessary decision to leave. That's So Raven, to become a full-time caregiver for her grandmother. This decision demonstrates the kind of family loyalty and sacrifice that often goes unseen in Hollywood, where career opportunities like starring in a hit Disney Channel series don't come around often. Fact 4. Chelsea's casting nearly didn't happen. The friendship between Raven and Chelsea that became the heart of That's So Raven almost never existed, and we have Raven-Symoné herself to thank for making sure it did. During the casting process for what would become one of Disney Channel's most iconic duos, the producers had already made their decision about who would play Raven's ditzy best friend, and it wasn't Anneliese van der Pol. After the show was restructured around Raven-Symoné as the lead character, the casting team went to work finding the perfect actress to play her best friend, who was originally named Emma rather than Chelsea. The producers went through their audition process and selected another actress entirely for this crucial role. This unnamed actress had already been given the part and was presumably preparing to start filming when something unexpected happened that would change the entire dynamic of the show. Raven-Symoné, who by this point had significant input as the star of the series, stepped in to express her concerns about the casting choice. She told the producers that she felt she had much better chemistry with Anneliese van der Pol, who had also auditioned for the role. This wasn't just a casual preference. Raven-Symoné believed that the natural connection between herself and van der Pol would translate into more authentic and entertaining scenes for the audience. The producers listened to their stars' feedback and decided to make a change, even though they had already cast someone else. They brought Anneliese van der Pol back for additional auditions and ultimately decided that Raven-Symoné was right about their chemistry. Van der Pol was given the role, the character's name was changed from Emma to Chelsea, and television history was made. This behind-the-scenes intervention by Raven-Symoné proved to be absolutely crucial to the show's success. The friendship between Raven and Chelsea became one of the most beloved aspects of the series, with their contrasting personalities and genuine affection for each other driving many of the show's best comedic and heartwarming moments. Without Raven-Symoné's instinct about their chemistry, fans might have gotten a completely different version of this friendship. Fact 5. Bayside High shares DNA with Saved by the Bell. Here's a connection that will make you see That's So Raven in a completely new light. Raven Baxter and her friends didn't just attend any fictional high school, they walked the exact same hallways as Zach Morris, Kelly Kapowski, and the gang from Saved by the Bell. The school sets used for both shows are not just similar, they're literally identical, and the writers made sure fans would eventually catch this clever reference. Both Saved by the Bell and That's So Raven feature a school called Bayside High School, complete with the same layout, the same architectural features, and even the same basic design elements. While Saved by the Bell's Bayside High was supposedly located in Pacific Palisades, California, That's So Raven's version was set in San Francisco, but the physical sets were unmistakably the same. This wasn't just a coincidence or a cost-saving measure, it was a deliberate choice that connected the two shows in a unique way. The connection becomes even more obvious when you learn that Michael Porias, one of the creators and writers of That's So Raven, also worked on Saved by the Bell. This shared creative background explains why the producers felt comfortable reusing not just the set design, but also the iconic school name, creating a kind of unofficial shared universe between the two teen sitcoms. The most brilliant part of this connection is how the writers of That's So Raven acknowledged it directly in the show itself. In the episode called Double Vision, Raven has a romantic encounter with a character named Ben, who looks remarkably similar to Zach Morris, the blonde-haired heartthrob from Saved by the Bell. This wasn't just a coincidence, it was a deliberate nod to fans who might have noticed the school connection, essentially confirming that yes, these shows exist in the same fictional world. Interestingly, iCarly also later used what appears to be the same set for their school scenes, though they didn't call it Bayside High, suggesting that this particular school set has had quite a long and productive life in teen television. Fact 6. The show accidentally created High School Musical. One of the most surprising legacies of That's So Raven has nothing to do with psychic visions or elaborate disguises, but rather with how it inadvertently gave birth to one of Disney Channel's biggest phenomena ever. The massive success of a single musical episode from That's So Raven literally inspired Disney executives to create High School Musical, proving that sometimes the best ideas come from unexpected places. In July of 2004, That's So Raven aired a special episode called The Road to Audition, which was entirely structured as a musical. This wasn't just a regular episode with a few songs thrown in. It was a full-blown musical production featuring elaborate choreography, multiple musical numbers, and storylines that revolved around singing and performing. The episode followed Raven and her friends as they tried to impress a talent scout who was secretly working undercover at their school. The episode was a massive hit with viewers, drawing some of the highest ratings in the show's history, and generating tons of positive feedback from fans who loved seeing their favorite characters break into song and dance. But That's So Raven wasn't the only Disney Channel show experimenting with musical episodes during this time period. Even Stevens had also produced a successful musical episode in 2002, which had already proven that Disney Channel audiences were hungry for this type of content. Disney Channel executives took notice of how well both musical episodes performed and realized they had stumbled onto something special. The success of these standalone musical episodes gave them the confidence to believe that an entire movie built around the musical format could work for their audience. This directly led to the development of High School Musical, which would become a cultural phenomenon when it premiered in 2006. The influence of the Road to Audition episode can be seen throughout High School Musical, from the high school setting to the focus on young performers discovering their talents to the way music and dance are seamlessly woven into the storytelling. Without Raven Baxter's musical adventure inspiring Disney executives, the entire High School Musical franchise might never have existed. Fact 7. Raven claims real psychic abilities. The line between fiction and reality gets surprisingly blurry when it comes to Raven-Symoné and her famous psychic character because the actress has openly stated that she believes she possesses genuine psychic abilities in her own life. In interviews over the years, she has revealed that playing a teenage clairvoyant wasn't just acting for her, it was actually drawing from experiences and beliefs she holds about her own spiritual gifts. During a candid interview with the African American Literature Book Club, Raven-Symoné was directly asked whether she had ever sensed psychic abilities in herself in real life, similar to her character Raven Baxter. Her response was surprisingly honest and detailed, confirming that she does believe she has these kinds of supernatural experiences. She said, "Yes, I have. I don't really like to talk about it too much, because it's a little personal for me. But I'm a very spiritual person. and I believe that there are amazing special gifts that people are blessed with. This admission adds a fascinating layer to her performance on That's So Raven, suggesting that when she portrayed those moments of having visions or sensing future events, she was tapping into something she genuinely believed she experienced herself. Raven-Symoné has been careful not to go into too much detail about her personal spiritual experiences, explaining that she considers these abilities to be private and sacred rather than something to be discussed casually or used for entertainment purposes. Her belief in psychic phenomena isn't something she developed after playing the role. According to her statements, these were beliefs and experiences she had long before That's So Raven ever existed. This means that when Disney was looking for someone to play a teenage psychic, they accidentally found an actress who genuinely connected with the supernatural elements of the character on a personal level. The fact that she approaches these topics with such seriousness and respect, rather than treating them as a publicity stunt or joke, suggests that her spiritual beliefs are a meaningful part of her personal identity that happen to align perfectly with her most famous television role. Fact 8. Country Cousins required 2 weeks of filming. One of the most ambitious episodes in That's So Raven history pushed both the show's production team and its star to their absolute limits, requiring an unprecedented 2 weeks of filming for what would normally be a single-episode shoot. In the 2-part episode called Country Cousins, Raven-Symoné took on the incredible challenge of playing not just her regular character, but also 3 completely different family members, each requiring extensive makeup, prosthetics. The episode's plot involves Raven and Chelsea visiting Raven's country relatives, where viewers meet Auntie Faye, Delroy, and Baby G, all of whom are actually played by Raven-Symoné herself, using elaborate disguises and makeup transformations. What made this episode so technically complex was that each character had to be completely convincing as a different person, which meant the makeup and prosthetics teams had to work overtime to create believable transformations. The makeup process alone was a marathon undertaking that tested everyone's patience and endurance. Raven-Symoné revealed that it took 2 full hours to transform her into Baby G, the youngest cousin character, while the Delroy transformation required an even more extensive 4 hours in the makeup chair. Each character needed different facial prosthetics, body padding, hair pieces, and makeup techniques to create the illusion that these were actually separate people rather than one actress playing multiple roles. The technical challenges didn't stop with makeup, because the episode also required extensive use of green screen technology to make it appear as though all these characters were interacting with each other in the same scenes. Since Raven-Symoné obviously couldn't be multiple people at once, each character had to be filmed separately against green screen backgrounds, and then the footage was combined in post-production to create scenes where the cousins appeared together. This complex filming process meant that what would normally take a few days to shoot stretched into a full 2 weeks of production time. The crew had to coordinate multiple costume changes, lengthy makeup sessions, different lighting setups for each character, and careful continuity to make sure all the separate performances would work together seamlessly in the final edit. Fact 9. The theme song featured her real father. The catchy opening theme song that introduced millions of viewers to That's So Raven each week had a special family connection that most fans never knew about, because one of the people responsible for creating that memorable tune was actually Raven-Symoné's real-life father, Christopher B. Pierman, who worked behind the scenes in the music industry, served as one of the co-producers for the show's theme song, making That's So Raven a true family affair from the very beginning. The theme song itself was written by John Coda, who also composed the background music and transition cues used throughout both That's So Raven and Even Stevens, but the production process involved multiple people working together to create the final version that viewers heard. Christopher B. Pierman collaborated with another producer named Def Jeff to bring the song to life, handling the technical aspects of recording and mixing, that transformed the written music into the polished theme song that became so iconic. What made this family collaboration even more special was that the theme song featured performances by the main cast members themselves, with Raven-Symoné handling most of the vocal duties, while Orlando Brown contributed rap sections and scattered vocals, and Annelies van der Pol sang the show's title during the chorus portions. This meant that Christopher B. Pearman was not only working as a music producer, but he was also directly involved in producing his own daughter's vocal performance for what would become one of Disney Channel's most recognizable theme songs. The involvement of Raven-Symoné's father in the show's music production represents the kind of family support system that helped make That's So Raven such a personal project for its star. Having a parent involved in the creative process meant that the theme song carried extra meaning and represented a genuine collaboration between family members working together to create something special. Disney Channel even created a full-length music video version of the theme song that aired several months before the show's official premiere, giving fans an extended version of the tune that featured more of the musical arrangements that Christopher B. Pearman helped produce. Fact 10. Brookwell vs. McNamara was a meta-reference. Sometimes the most clever jokes are the ones that hide in plain sight. And That's So Raven included one of the sneakiest meta-references in television history that went completely over most viewers' heads at the time. During a scene where Tanya Baxter is studying for her law school exams, eagle-eyed fans might have noticed the name of a legal case in her textbook, but what they probably didn't realize was that this seemingly random case name was actually a playful nod to the people making the show itself. The case that Tanya studies is called Brookwell vs. McNamara, which appears to be just another boring legal precedent that law students would need to memorize for their exams. However, this wasn't just a random name that the writers pulled out of thin air. It was actually the name of the production company that was responsible for creating That's So Raven during its first 3 seasons. Brookwell McNamara Entertainment was the behind-the-scenes company founded by producers Susan Sherman and Michael Porteous, who were also the creators and executive producers of the show. This kind of meta-reference, where a television show references its own production team within the fictional world of the story, is relatively rare and represents a clever inside joke that the writers included for their own amusement. Most viewers would have no reason to know the names of the production companies involved in making their favorite shows, which meant that this reference could exist as a fun Easter egg without disrupting the story or confusing the audience. The timing of this reference is particularly interesting because Brookwell McNamara Entertainment was replaced by Warren and Rinsler Productions when the show moved into its 4th and final season. This means that the Brookwell vs. McNamara case reference served as both a celebration of the production company's work on the show and, unknowingly, a kind of farewell to their involvement with That's So Raven. The fact that this reference appeared in a scene about Tanya's law studies also adds an extra layer of cleverness, since legal cases are exactly the kind of place where you might expect to see formal business names like Brookwell vs. McNamara, without it seeming out of place. Fact 11. Episodes aired completely out of order. If you ever watched That's So Raven and felt like something was off about the timeline or noticed weird inconsistencies between episodes, you weren't imagining things. The show's episodes were deliberately aired in a completely different order than they were actually filmed. This broadcasting strategy created what appeared to be continuity errors and plot holes. But these weren't mistakes made by the writers or producers. They were the inevitable result of Disney Channel's decision to prioritize episode quality over chronological storytelling. The reason Disney Channel could get away with this unusual broadcasting approach was because That's So Raven was designed as what television producers call a non-serialized show, meaning that each episode was intended to stand alone as its own complete story, rather than being part of a larger ongoing narrative. Unlike shows that follow character development and plot lines from week to week, That's So Raven episodes could theoretically be watched in any order without viewers missing crucial information or feeling lost about what was happening. However, This flexible approach to episode order sometimes created confusing situations for dedicated fans who paid close attention to details. For example, viewers might notice that a character's hairstyle or relationship status seemed to change randomly between episodes, or that certain plot points appeared to be resolved and then unresolved again in later episodes. These apparent inconsistencies led some fans to believe that the show had serious continuity problems or that the writers weren't paying attention to their own storylines. The most notable example of this out-of-order broadcasting involved episodes Bend It Like Baxter, which had the production code 315, and Double Vision, which had the production code 318. Even though Double Vision was filmed after Bend It Like Baxter, it actually aired before it, creating what looked like a timeline error, but was really just the result of Disney Channel's scheduling decisions. This broadcasting strategy allowed Disney Channel to air episodes based on factors like seasonal themes, special events, or simply which episodes they thought would perform best during particular time slots, rather than being locked into the order in which the episodes were originally created. Fact 12. The show broke Disney's sacred episode cap. For years, Disney Channel operated under a strict business model that seemed set in stone. Every original series would be limited to exactly 65 episodes, no matter how popular or successful it became. This wasn't just a casual guideline, it was a firm rule that Disney used to manage costs, keep their programming fresh, and make room for new shows in their lineup. However, That's So Raven became so incredibly successful that it forced Disney to break their own sacred rule for the very first time in the network's history. The 65-episode limit had been Disney Channel's standard practice for years, and it affected beloved shows like Lizzie McGuire, which ended right at that episode count despite having a devoted fan base. This approach typically meant that Disney would produce about 13 new episodes per season for 5 seasons, then move on to develop new properties, rather than continuing to invest in existing shows. The logic behind this system was that it prevented shows from becoming stale, while also ensuring that Disney always had fresh content in development. But That's So Raven changed everything when it became the highest-rated series in Disney Channel's history at that time, consistently drawing massive audiences and proving that viewers couldn't get enough of Raven Baxter's psychic adventures. The show's popularity was so overwhelming that Disney executives realized they would be making a serious business mistake if they canceled it just to stick to their traditional episode limit. In June of 2005, Disney made the groundbreaking announcement that That's So Raven would be renewed for a 4th season, bringing the total episode count to 100 episodes. This marked the first time in Disney Channel's history that an original series would exceed 3 seasons and reach the 100-episode milestone that was typically required for syndication on other networks. The decision to break their own rule for That's So Raven opened the floodgates for other Disney Channel shows to run longer than 65 episodes. Shows like Hannah Montana, which reached 99 episodes, and Wizards of Waverly Place, which eventually surpassed That's So Raven with 106 episodes, all benefited from this precedent-setting decision. Fact 13. Celebrity parodies had hidden connections. That's So Raven had a lot of fun creating fake celebrities and musical acts that were clearly inspired by real-world stars, and these parodies were often so obvious that they became part of the show's comedy. The writers loved to include fictional musicians and performers who were barely disguised versions of actual pop culture icons, creating a world where Raven could interact with celebrity lookalikes without the legal complications of using real names or likenesses. One of the most memorable fake musical acts featured on the show was Boys N Motion, a boy band that was an unmistakable parody of the hugely popular group NSYNC. The similarities were intentionally obvious, from their synchronized dance moves to their matching outfits, and even their hit song title gave away the joke, "Bye Bye Bye." Home Cookin' was a clear reference to NSYNC's famous song, Bye Bye Bye. The show made no attempt to hide the fact that this was supposed to be a comedic version of one of the biggest boy bands of the early 2000s. Another recurring fake celebrity character was Pressure, played by actor Cavante Jackson, who appeared in multiple episodes as one of Raven's favorite singers. Pressure was designed as a direct parody of the R&B superstar Usher, copying everything from his musical style to his dance moves to his overall stage presence. The character was so obviously based on Usher that it became part of the running joke whenever he appeared on screen. The show also featured other celebrity parodies throughout its run, including Maisha, who was clearly meant to be a version of the actress and singer Moesha, and various other fictional performers who bore striking resemblances to real stars of the time. These parodies allowed That's So Raven to tap into the excitement of celebrity culture and give Raven opportunities to meet her musical idols without having to actually book real celebrities or deal with the complications of portraying actual people. The celebrity parody episodes were particularly popular with viewers because they combined the fantasy of meeting famous people with the comedy of seeing slightly ridiculous versions of stars that everyone recognized, creating a perfect blend of wish fulfillment and humor. Fact 14. Orlando Brown got a Raven tattoo. In early 2016, Orlando Brown made headlines for one of the most unusual tributes to a former co-star that anyone in Hollywood had ever seen, when he debuted a large tattoo featuring Raven-Symoné's face prominently displayed across his chest and neck. This wasn't a small, discreet piece of body art. It was a major tattoo that made his connection to his That's So Raven co-star literally impossible to miss, turning their professional relationship into a permanent part of his physical appearance. The tattoo appeared during a particularly difficult period in Orlando Brown's life, when he was facing various personal challenges and legal troubles that had been making news for several years. Many people in the entertainment industry and fans of That's So Raven were surprised and concerned by this dramatic gesture, especially since it represented such a permanent commitment to honoring someone he had worked with nearly a decade earlier, when the show ended in 2007. When Raven-Symoné was asked about her reaction to discovering that her former co-star had gotten such a prominent tattoo of her face, she appeared visibly uncomfortable discussing the situation and quickly tried to change the subject during interviews. Her response suggested that she found the gesture unexpected and perhaps overwhelming, rather than flattering or touching, which was understandable given the very personal and permanent nature of Orlando Brown's decision. The tattoo became part of a larger pattern of concerning behavior from Orlando Brown, who had been making various unusual public statements and claims about his relationships with former Disney Channel colleagues during this time period. The decision to get such a large, visible tattoo of Raven-Symoné seemed to represent his desire to maintain a connection to what was arguably the most successful and stable period of his career, even though their professional relationship had ended years earlier. This incident highlighted how the intense bonds formed during successful television productions can sometimes take unexpected turns years later, especially when former child stars struggle with the transition to adult life and careers outside of their most famous roles. Fact 15. Continuity errors were built into Season 4. The final episodes of That's So Raven created one of the most confusing timeline problems in Disney Channel history, but this wasn't an accident or oversight by the writers. It was an intentional continuity error that resulted from Disney's decision to launch a spin-off series while the original show was still airing new episodes. The last 3 episodes of That's So Raven aired after Cory in the House had already premiered, creating a bizarre situation where characters appeared to be living in 2 different places at the same time. Cory in the House premiered on January 12, 2007, following the premise that Raven Baxter and his father Victor had moved to Washington, D.C., so that Victor could work as the personal chef for the President of the United States. This spin-off was supposed to continue the story after That's So Raven ended, showing what happened to these characters after they left San Francisco and the rest of the Baxter family behind. However, Disney Channel still had 3 unaired episodes of That's So Raven that featured both Cory and Victor living at home with Raven, just like they always had throughout the series. These episodes were filmed before the spin-off was developed, but they didn't air until months after Corey in the House had already established that these characters were now living completely different lives in a different city. This created an impossible timeline where viewers could watch Corey and Victor in Washington, D.C., on Corey in the House, and then tune in to see the same characters still living in San Francisco on the final episodes of That's So Raven. For fans who were paying attention to both shows, it made no sense and violated the basic rules of storytelling continuity. Disney Channel was aware of this problem, but decided to air the remaining That's So Raven episodes anyway, rather than leaving them unaired or trying to edit them to fix the continuity issues. This decision prioritized giving fans closure on the original series over maintaining a logical timeline between the two shows, resulting in what might be the most prominent example of intentional continuity errors in Disney Channel's programming history.